You leave the tiny thing open in the tab like it is a weather system. Not because it is hard, because it is tiny, which is somehow worse. A bill to pay, a form to sign, a message to answer, the 1-minute thing you keep walking past, with the spiritual confidence of a person who has totally handled it in theory. It sits there in the background and keeps asking for a chair at the table. It is not dramatic, it is just loud in a very annoying way. And you know the trick already. You do the same little move every time. Not now, later, when the day is more settled. When your head is clear, when you have a proper stretch of time, when you are in a more civilized state of mind. Which is funny because your brain is currently being run by a raccoon in a headset. I did this last week with a reply that would have taken maybe 2 minutes. I let it sit there so long it started feeling like a project. That is an embarrassing sentence, but there it is. Researchers at Florida State University found that an unfinished task does not sit politely in a list and wait its turn. It keeps interrupting whatever else you try to do. The fix was not even doing it right away. Just deciding exactly when and how was enough to quiet it. That is the part that should annoy you a little. It was never the task draining you. It was the one you did not do. That is the whole scam, really. You think you are saving time by moving the little thing out of the way. Instead, you hand it a chair in your head and let it tap a spoon against the glass for the next 4 hours. Very efficient, very modern, a beautiful system. And once you notice it, the day starts looking less like a clean line and more like a plate somebody dropped from waist height. Not shattered enough to be dramatic, just enough to make everything slightly stupid. A study from the University of Minnesota found that when people jumped to a new task before finishing the last, part of their attention stayed stuck behind. They got slower and sloppier on the new thing and never noticed. That is the insult of it. You feel like you switched cleanly. You did not. You carried the last task into the new one like a wet coat, which means the tiny thing is never tiny. It is a residue, a little smear on the lens. And then you wonder why the email takes 5 minutes, why the spreadsheet feels greasy, why the sentence you were about to write suddenly looks like it was composed by a sleepy forklift. The really annoying part is how reasonable the delay sounds while you're doing it. 2 minutes does not sound like a debt. It sounds like mercy. Like you are protecting your future self from interruption. But the interruption is already here. It just moved in and stopped paying rent. Then there is the body of it. Your hand keeps drifting back to the phone. Your browser gains another tab. Your attention starts doing that nervous little hallway pacing thing, where it is technically in the room, but already looking for the exit. You are not being lazy. You just kept moving it to the list where small things go to die. There. That is the line. It is ugly because it is accurate. And the list, of course, is not a real graveyard. It is just a place in your mind where unfinished things go to become emotional wallpaper. Mark and Gonzalez, shadowing 24 workers at the University of California, Irvine, found that the day was broken up into a task every about 11 minutes, with 57% of all work interrupted. Once people were knocked off, they wandered through 2 or 3 other tasks before coming back. 2 minutes, sure. That is the joke the whole system keeps telling itself. And it is not even a good joke, because every interruption adds a little friction, and friction has a talent for multiplying like it pays taxes. The forgotten reply becomes the second forgotten reply. The quick form becomes the hour you spent opening and closing the same window, like it might apologize. Then the original task is still there, now wearing a more official face. Fantastic. This is why the little thing never stays little. It breeds, not in a mystical way, in a calendar way. A missed invoice becomes a fee. A message you meant to send becomes the awkward thing. You don't have to explain with a preface, which is always a bad sign. A form left untouched turns into the kind of life admin that arrives with its own little warning triangle. None of these are tragedies. That is almost the problem. They are just irritating enough to keep happening. You can feel the brain trying to be noble about it. I will handle the important work first, then the small stuff. Very dignified. Like a man in a suit politely stepping over a puddle that is already inside his shoe. And then the open loop keeps tugging at you from under the floorboards. Not in some poetic sense, in the plain sense that your attention is never fully where your body is. You start rereading the same paragraph 3 times. You open your notes app for no reason. You become the sort of person who says out loud to nobody, I just need to get through this one thing. Which is true and also not how clocks work. The fix, maddeningly, is boring. Not heroic, not motivational. Decide the exact time. Decide the exact first motion. 20 seconds of specificity. Not I will deal with it later, which is just a foggy promise wearing a tie. Something like, at 3:15 I open the form, I fill the top section, I stop. That kind of ugly little sentence. The brain settles when the thing has shape. It hates mist, it loves edges. And yes, this is the part where the advice video would like you to believe that a tiny planning ritual will transform your life into a Scandinavian staircase of serenity. It will not. It will just keep one open tab from echoing through your skull all afternoon. which honestly is already a respectable achievement, because what we are really talking about is not time management. It is mental debt. The 2-minute task is not expensive to do. It is expensive to carry. That is the part people keep getting backwards, as if the cost sits in the action instead of the delay. It does not. The delay is the cost. That is also why the shame never helps. Shame makes you look at the little task and see a character flaw. No, it is just a loose thread, and your mind keeps snagging on it every time you walk past. The thread is not moral, it is annoying. Try to keep the scale honest. The funny thing is that the task itself often takes less time than your resistance to it. The resistance builds an entire weather pattern. The task is a paper cup. You could move it in a minute and the storm would still have the nerve to act important. So you keep losing little chunks of the day in absurd ways, not because one huge disaster happened, but because your brain kept returning to the unfinished thing, like a dog checking the door after hearing a sound in another room. It is not thinking, it is patrolling. And that patrolling has a cost that shows up in places you do not connect at first. You answer someone with less warmth than you meant to because your head is already elsewhere. You miss the easy detail in a document because your attention is split in two and pretending not to be. You sit down to do one clean task, and suddenly the afternoon has a thin layer of grit on it. Nothing dramatic, just enough to make everything more annoying than it should have been. That is why the tiny thing matters more than the big speech about discipline ever will. The big speech is theater. The tiny thing is where the day actually leaks. Most people do not need a new identity. They need a rule so small it sounds almost insulting. If it takes under 2 minutes, name the exact minute and do the first motion now. Not later. Now while the thought is still warm, and you have not yet converted it into a philosophy. And if you cannot do it now, which happens, because life is a circus with billing software, set the exact when and how before you leave it. Not a vague intention, a shape. A little box for the brain to stop kicking at. That sounds almost too simple to deserve a paragraph, which is exactly why it works. The mind is happy to be dramatic. It is less happy to be specific. Specificity is rude to the fantasy of procrastination. It asks for a costume change, and there is no time for that. The other thing nobody likes admitting is that these little tasks often cost more socially than they do practically. You are late replying, so now the other person has already built a story about your silence. You forgot the form, so now somebody else has to nudge you, which is not how adults want to spend their afternoon. You meant to send the receipt, and now the expense looks like a tiny accusation sitting in your inbox. Wonderful little system, smooth, and because the cost is distributed across all these tiny places, it is easy to pretend nothing is happening. That is the trap. It never hurts in one big clean place. It just makes everything slightly worse, which is a very bureaucratic way for a problem to exist. That is why this whole habit survives so long. It does not feel like failure. It feels like organization. You are moving the pebble. You are being efficient. You are making room. Meanwhile, the pebble is in your shoe. A lot of advice misses that. It treats the delay as a time issue, as if the answer were better planning. A stronger routine, a more optimized morning, whatever flavor of gospel is currently being sold in a microphone. But the real issue is that the unfinished thing stays mentally active until it has a shape or a finish line. Your mind does not relax because you meant well. It relaxes because the thing now has coordinates. So when the 2-minute task shows up, do not make it an event. Do not give it a committee meeting. Just pin it down, open the tab, write the line. Pay the bill, send the note, fill the first field. That is enough. The relief is weirdly out of proportion to the effort, which should tell you something about how expensive the delay was. And if you keep avoiding the same little thing, notice what you are actually preserving. Not time, not energy, a loop. A tiny open loop that keeps taking one hand off the wheel. Every time you think you are finally done with it. Very elegant, very dumb. The 2-minute thing is usually the first crack in the day, where everything else starts entering through the side door. Once that crack opens, your attention does what attention always does. It wanders, it backtracks, it forgets where it left its coat, and it calls that a working system. So maybe the useful habit is less about becoming a better person, and more about refusing to let the small thing become background noise. Name it, give it a time, give it a first move. Close the loop before it starts hiring help. Because it is never just the task. It is the half-finished one behind it, and the one behind that, and the whole quiet pile you keep dragging from room to room without looking at it too closely. You stare at the tiny open tab and tell yourself you will deal with it after this one thing.